The massive alien ship appeared suddenly in Earth's orbit on a quiet Tuesday morning in 2157. It was larger than anything humans had ever built, gleaming like burnished gold against the blackness of space. Within minutes, every screen on Earth showed the same image. Admiral George Bennett stood on the bridge of the USV Defender, Earth's largest military vessel, and felt very small indeed. His ship, once the pride of the United Earth Space Force, looked like a toy beside the alien mothership. "Sir, they're hailing us," said Lieutenant Olivia Martinez. Her fingers moved quickly over her console. "I'm working on translation protocols now." Bennett straightened his uniform. At 57, with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes, he had never expected to be humanity's first contact with alien life. "Put them through, Lieutenant." The main screen flickered. Two alien figures appeared. One had scales that shimmered green and gold, with vertical pupils and amber eyes. The other resembled an enormous insect with compound eyes and delicate antennae that moved constantly. "I am Senior Counselor Zack Thar," said the reptilian alien in a voice that sounded strangely musical despite its rough appearance. "This is Sub-Counselor Vex of the Vesperi. We represent the Galactic Council of the 27 Worlds. We come in peace to welcome humanity to the galactic community." Commander Ryan Phillips watched from his security station, hand resting near his sidearm. As head of security, he trusted no one, especially not aliens who appeared without warning. He caught Martinez's eye and raised an eyebrow. She nodded slightly. The translation seemed accurate. "I am Admiral George Bennett of the United Earth Space Force," Bennett replied. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, we welcome you and look forward to peaceful relations." Over the next week, a flurry of diplomatic activity followed. The aliens requested a meeting on Earth's surface. World leaders quickly prepared the United Nations headquarters in New York for the historic summit. Phillips led the security detail as the alien delegation descended in a shuttle that made no sound as it landed. He watched President Alicia Harrington greet the visitors with a dignified handshake, which the aliens attempted to mimic with their strange limbs. "Their technology is at least 3 centuries ahead of ours," whispered Dr. Samantha Wright, the lead xenobiologist assigned to the diplomatic team. She stood next to Phillips, her red hair pulled back in a tight bun. "Look at the material of their suits. It seems to shift and adapt to our atmosphere." Phillips nodded. "And their weapons? What about those?" "I'm not sure they're carrying any," Wright said, "though that doesn't mean they don't have them." The initial meetings went surprisingly well. The aliens spoke of trade, cultural exchange, and technology sharing. They seemed particularly interested in Earth's biodiversity and water resources, which they called uncommonly abundant. By the third day, Lieutenant Martinez had refined the translation system, enough to catch subtle nuances in the alien speech patterns. She approached Phillips after the evening session ended. "Something isn't right," she said quietly. "When they speak among themselves, they use different terms for us than when they address us directly. In their private conversations, they refer to Earth as a resource world, and to humans as specimens rather than allies or partners." Phillips frowned. "Have you told the Admiral?" "Not yet. I wanted to be certain." Martins bit her lip. "There's something else. I've detected communications between their ship and locations throughout our solar system. I think they have more vessels out there, hiding." That night, Phillips couldn't sleep. He stood at his apartment window, looking up at the stars. Somewhere up there, the alien mothership loomed, its intentions unclear. His phone buzzed. A message from Admiral Bennett. "Emergency meeting, 500 hours. Sub-Counselor Vex requesting private audience. Claims to have critical information humanity must know." Phillips stared at the message for a long moment. Whatever was coming, he had a feeling humanity's view of the universe was about to change forever. Commander Phillips arrived at the secure meeting room at 4:45 a.m. The hallways of the United Nations building were eerily quiet. 2 armed guards nodded as he passed through the security checkpoint. Admiral Bennett was already inside, reviewing documents on a tablet. Dr. Wright sat beside him, dark circles under her eyes suggesting she hadn't slept at all. "What's this about?" Phillips asked. Bennett looked up. Sub-Counselor Vex requested this meeting without Senior Counselor Zaxfar's knowledge. Martinez will translate. Nobody else knows about this. At exactly 5:00 a.m., the insectoid alien entered. Vex's antennae twitched nervously, and the compound eyes darted around the room. "I have limited time," Vex said through Martinez's translation device. "What I tell you must remain secret. The Galactic Council is not what it appears to be." Dr. Wright leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "The Council is not a federation of equals. It is a hierarchy. The Draconians and my people, the Vesperi, control the others through a tribute system that has existed for 50,000 years. Vex's mandibles clicked rapidly. New species like yours are classified and assessed for resource value. Phillips felt a cold knot form in his stomach. And how has Earth been classified? As a resource world. Category A prime. Your water alone would make you valuable, but you also have rare minerals and, Vex hesitated, biological diversity that interests the Council greatly. Biological diversity. Dr. Wright's voice was sharp. You mean us, humans? Yes. The Council requires tribute from all member species, resources, technology, and biological specimens. Admiral Bennett stood up. Specimens? You're talking about people. 10,000 humans per Earth year would be the initial quota, Vex said flatly. This is actually quite modest compared to what some worlds provide. The room fell silent. Phillips fought to keep his expression neutral as rage built inside him. "Why are you telling us this?" he finally asked. Vex's antennae drooped slightly. "My species was once like yours. We have been senior members for millennia, but we began as tribute providers. The memory remains in our ancestral records, though speaking of it is forbidden." 3 hours later, President Harrington sat ashen-faced as Bennett and Wright explained what they had learned. Phillips stood by the door, watching her reaction. "And you believe this Vex is telling the truth?" she asked. Lieutenant Martinez confirmed the translation was accurate, Bennett said. "And Dr. Wright's analysis of their technology suggests they have the capability to enforce these demands. The tribute demand will be made officially at tomorrow's public meeting," Wright added. Vex warned us that refusal has historically been met with what they call pacification, essentially stripping a planet of all valuable resources by force. President Harrington paced the room. "What are our options?" "Limited," Bennett admitted. "Their technology far exceeds our own. Our entire fleet couldn't stop one of their ships." "We need time," Wright suggested, "if we appear to cooperate while secretly preparing." A soft chime interrupted them. Martinez entered, her face pale. "I'm sorry to interrupt, Madam President, but you need to see this." She activated the room's main screen. "I've been monitoring the alien mothership's communications. They've dropped their encryption, almost like they want us to see this." The screen showed dozens of massive ships emerging from behind the moon and Jupiter's moons. The Galactic Council had not come with one ship. They had brought an armada. "They're taking positions throughout the solar system," Martinez explained. "We're surrounded." President Harrington stared at the screen, her jaw tight. "Call an emergency global summit. All world leaders, military commanders, and top scientists. We have 24 hours before they make their demands official." Phillips watched the alien ships on the screen. Earth had been outmaneuvered before they even knew the game had begun. "What will we do?" he asked quietly. The president turned to him, her eyes hard as steel. "First, we listen to their demands. Then, Commander Phillips, we decide whether humanity kneels or stands." The United Nations General Assembly Hall had never been so crowded. World leaders sat shoulder to shoulder while military officers lined the walls. The air felt thick with tension. President Harrington stood at the podium, her voice steady despite having slept only 2 hours. The Galactic Council will present their official demands in 6 hours. Before that happens, we need to decide our response as a unified Earth. On the main screen, images of the alien ships positioned throughout the solar system glowed ominously. Admiral Bennett stepped forward. Based on our analysis, we face a force with technology at least 3 centuries beyond our own. Their weapons could reduce our cities to ash in minutes. Our entire fleet could not stop even one of their smaller vessels. Murmurs of fear rippled through the room. General Frank Morrison, a broad-shouldered man with a bulldog face, stood up. "With all due respect, Admiral, are you suggesting we surrender without a fight? 10,000 humans handed over each year as specimens. That's slavery." "I'm not suggesting anything yet," Bennett replied. "I'm stating facts. Dr. Wright will now share her findings." Dr. Wright took the podium. Behind her glasses, her eyes were sharp and focused. "The tribute system isn't new. Based on the data Sub-Counselor Vex provided, the Council has been operating this way for 50,000 years. 27 species currently belong to the Council. 6 are senior members who receive tribute. The rest provided." She displayed a chart on the screen. Species are classified by resource value. Earth is Category A prime, the highest value, due to our water, minerals, and biological diversity. "What happens to the specimens they take?" asked the Prime Minister of Japan. Wright's face darkened. "According to Vex, they're used for labor, research, and," she paused, "breeding programs to create specialized biological tools." The room erupted in angry shouts. President Harrington raised her hand for silence. Secretary of State Daniel Carter spoke next. His voice was calm, reasonable. "We could negotiate, offer some resources but refuse the human tribute, buy time to build our defenses." "History suggests that doesn't work," interrupted Nicole Patterson, a sharp-featured intelligence officer. She stood and faced the assembly. "I've analyzed the data from Vex. Species that partially comply initially face increasing demands until their blood dry. The Council sees compromise as weakness." Commander Phillips watched from his position near the President. He noticed how the room had divided, those advocating immediate resistance versus those seeking negotiation. The debate raged for hours. General Morrison wanted to deploy nuclear weapons, even knowing they would barely scratch the alien ships. Secretary Carter argued for diplomatic solutions. Scientists proposed hiding humans in underground bunkers while pretending to comply. During a brief recess, Phillips found Dr. Wright staring out a window at the Manhattan skyline. "What do you think we should do?" he asked quietly. She didn't look at him. "In my lab, when a parasite attacks a host, there are 3 outcomes. The host submits and is consumed slowly. The host fights and is killed quickly. Or," she turned to him, "the host does something unexpected that changes the relationship entirely." "Like what?" "I don't know yet, but Lieutenant Martinez and Dr. Eric Tanner are working on something. They've discovered an unusual pattern in the Council's communication system." Before she could explain more, alarms blared throughout the building. Everyone rushed back to the main hall. Lieutenant Martinez stood at the communications console, her face pale. "The Council mothership is moving into low Earth orbit. They're broadcasting a message globally. Every screen on Earth is receiving it." The main screen flickered. Senior Counselor Zach Thar appeared, his reptilian features arranged in what might have been a smile. "People of Earth," he said, "the time has come to formalize your membership in the Galactic Council. We require your answer to our generous tribute proposal." President Harrington stepped forward, facing the camera that would transmit her image to the alien ship. "Before we respond," she said carefully, "I need to consult with my advisors one final time." The alien nodded. "You have 1 hour, President Harrington. Choose wisely." President Harrington gathered her closest advisors in a small room away from the main assembly. Her face was grim but determined. Admiral Bennett, Dr. Wright, Commander Phillips, Lieutenant Martinez, and Secretary Carter formed a tight circle around her. "We need to decide now," she said. "What is Earth's answer to the Council? Secretary Carter leaned forward. "Madam President, we should negotiate. Offer resources, but refuse human tribute. It buys us time." "Time for what?" General Morrison growled. "To build weapons that still won't match theirs. They've had 50,000 years to perfect their technology." Dr. Wright cleared her throat. "Lieutenant Martinez and Dr. Tanner have discovered something." "Lieutenant, please explain." Martinez stepped forward, tablet in hand. "The Council ships use a unified communication network. All their vessels, regardless of species origin, operate on the same system. It's their strength, but potentially also a weakness." "How so?" Admiral Bennett asked. "If we could disrupt that network, even temporarily, it might create confusion." "And," Martinez hesitated, "Vex gave us access codes. Not enough to control their ships, but enough to broadcast a message throughout their entire fleet simultaneously." President Harrington considered this. "What message?" "The truth," Dr. Wright said simply, "about what the Council really is. About the tribute system. Many species in the Council don't know the full truth about how the system works or where tribute really goes." Commander Phillips watched the President's face. He saw the moment when she made her decision. "Here's what we're going to do," she said. "We'll give them an answer they don't expect. Lieutenant Martinez, prepare your broadcast, but hold until my signal. Admiral, ready our fleet, not to attack, but to defend key positions if necessary." 50 minutes later, a small human delegation approached the Council mothership in a diplomatic shuttle. President Harrington sat calmly, flanked by Admiral Bennett and Commander Phillips. Dr. Wright and Lieutenant Martinez sat behind them, equipment hidden in ordinary briefcases. The shuttle docked with a massive alien vessel. Council guards, tall, armored beings with 4 arms, escorted them to the Grand Chamber where representatives from all 27 Council species waited. The chamber was enormous, with a high domed ceiling that showed the stars beyond. Raised platforms circled the room, each holding delegates from different species. At the center, on the highest platform, sat Senior Counselor Zach Thar with 5 other senior members beside him. "President Harrington," Zach Thar's voice echoed in the vast space. "We welcome Earth's delegation. Have you reached your decision regarding our tribute request?" Harrington stepped forward. She carried only a small data chip in her hand. "Senior Counselor, I bring humanity's answer. We have prepared it in this data format for your records." A murmur rippled through the alien delegates. This was standard procedure. New species typically submitted detailed plans for how they would meet tribute requirements. Zach Thar gestured, and an aide took the chip, inserting it into a console. A simple text display appeared on the massive screen behind him. It contained a single word: "No." Silence fell across the chamber, then confusion. Aliens turned to each other, translator devices working overtime as they confirmed what they were seeing. "There must be some mistake," Zach Thar said, his voice losing its musical quality. "Perhaps a translation error." "There is no error," President Harrington said clearly. "Humanity's answer to your tribute demand is no. We will not provide resources. We will not provide human specimens. We will not submit." The chamber erupted in chaos. Some alien delegates shouted. Others seemed confused or even impressed. The senior counselors conferred urgently among themselves. "This is unprecedented," Zach Thar finally said, his voice cold. "No species has ever refused tribute outright. The consequences will be severe." "We understand the risks," Harrington replied steadily. "But humanity will not live on its knees." Commander Phillips tensed, hand moving toward his concealed weapon as the council guards stepped closer. "This meeting is concluded," Zach Thar announced. "Return to your planet and await our response." As they walked back to their shuttle, Admiral Bennett leaned close to Harrington. "That went about as expected. Phase 1 complete," she replied quietly. "Now for the hard part." 1 month passed since humanity's refusal. The Council ships remained in position around Earth, a constant reminder of the threat hanging over humanity. No attacks came, but the tension grew with each passing day. Commander Phillips stood in the war room beneath the Pentagon, studying the holographic display of Earth's defenses. The room buzzed with activity as military personnel from around the world worked together with unprecedented cooperation. "They're still debating," said Lieutenant Martinez as she entered the room. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes from endless hours monitoring Council communications. "Their leadership is divided on how to handle us." "That's good news," Phillips replied. "Every day they debate is another day we can prepare." Admiral Bennett joined them, his uniform crisp despite the late hour. "President Harrington's on her way. Dr. Wright and Dr. Tanner have made a breakthrough." Minutes later, they gathered around a conference table. Dr. Wright placed a small device in the center. "This is what we've learned," she said. "The Council's ships use a quantum-linked communication system. It allows instant contact across vast distances, but it also means every ship is connected to every other ship, like a neural network." Dr. Eric Tanner, a thin man with nervous hands, added, "We've modified Vex's access codes. We can't control their ships, but we might be able to disrupt their entire communication system at once." "How long would the disruption last?" Admiral Bennett asked. "Minutes at most," Tanner replied. "But in those minutes, their fleet would be in chaos. No ship could communicate with any other ship." President Harrington frowned. "Would a few minutes be enough?" "For what we're planning, yes," Dr. Wright said. "Lieutenant Mason has an idea for how to use those minutes." Lieutenant Gregory Mason stepped forward. Unlike the scientists, he had the solid build of a career soldier. His eyes were sharp and focused. "The Council expects a conventional war," he explained. "They have superior weapons and shields, but their tactics are predictable. They've never faced a species that refused tribute, so they've never needed to adapt." He pointed to specific Council ships on the display. "Their command structure is hierarchical. If we target these key vessels during the communication blackout, we can maximize the confusion." "And then what?" Phillips asked. "We still can't destroy their fleet." "We don't need to," Lieutenant Martinez said. "The device I've been working on will piggyback on the disruption. When their network goes down, we broadcast the truth, everything Vex told us, with evidence, to every ship in their fleet simultaneously." President Harrington nodded slowly, exposing the senior Council members to their own people. "Exactly," Dr. Wright said. "Many species in the Council don't know the full truth. They believe the tribute system is fair. They don't know where the human specimens would really go or what would happen to them." Before they could discuss further, alarms blared throughout the complex. A communications officer rushed in. "Madam President, the Council mothership is broadcasting again. System-wide." The main screen activated. Senior Counselor Zaxthar appeared, his reptilian features arranged in a cold, hard expression. "People of Earth," he said, "your refusal of legally required tribute is unprecedented and unacceptable. The Council has deliberated and reached a decision." The camera pulled back to show representatives from all 27 species. "You are hereby given a final opportunity to comply. You have 7 Earth days to reconsider your position and agree to our original terms. If you do not comply, we will begin the pacification process. Your military installations will be destroyed first, followed by systematic resource extraction." The threat hung in the air after the transmission ended. The room remained silent for several long moments. 7 days, Admiral Bennett finally said. "That's all the time we have." President Harrington stood up, her face resolute. "Then we have work to do. Dr. Tanner, perfect your disruption device. Lieutenant Martinez, prepare your broadcast. Lieutenant Mason, ready your strike teams." She turned to Commander Phillips. "Commander, I'm authorizing Operation Black Echo. Effective immediately." Phillips nodded grimly. The countdown to humanity's greatest gamble had begun. 6 days had passed since the Council's ultimatum. On the final morning, Secretary Carter requested a meeting with the alien leadership. His message was simple. Earth wished to discuss terms of surrender. Commander Phillips stood in the shuttle bay of the USV Defender, watching the diplomatic vessel being prepared. The small craft looked ordinary, but hidden within its walls was Dr. Tanner's quantum disruption device. "Do you think they'll suspect anything?" asked Dr. Wright as she joined him. She wore a simple blue suit, looking like just another diplomatic aide, rather than a key architect of humanity's resistance plan. "They expect us to surrender," Phillips replied. "Pride will blind them to any other possibility." Secretary Carter approached, his expression somber. "The delegation is ready. The President has given final approval." Across the solar system, Lieutenant Mason's strike teams prepared on 6 smaller military vessels. Their targets were the command ships of the Council fleet. Not to destroy them, that would be impossible, but to create confusion at the critical moment. "Remember," Phillips told Carter, "you need to be on the main command deck when the device activates. Lieutenant Martinez's broadcast will only work if it originates from there." Carter nodded. "I'll make sure of it. They believe I'm coming to offer Earth's submission. They'll want to gloat." 3 hours later, the diplomatic shuttle docked with the Council mothership. Secretary Carter led a small delegation into the grand chamber where the Council waited. Commander Phillips and Dr. Wright followed behind, appearing as simple security and scientific advisors. Senior Counselor Zach Starr looked down from his raised platform. "Secretary Carter, I'm pleased to see that humanity has finally embraced wisdom over pride." Carter bowed his head slightly. "We wish to discuss the terms of Earth's compliance with Council demands." "There are no negotiations," Zach Starr replied coldly. "You will meet the original tribute requirements. 10,000 human specimens per year. 15% of all rare earth minerals. Unrestricted access to your oceans." "We understand," Carter said, his voice humble. "We have brought a detailed plan for how we will meet these obligations." He held up a data device similar to the one President Harrington had brought previously. An aide took it and inserted it into a console. Phillips tensed. Inside that device was not a surrender plan but the trigger for Dr. Tanner's disruption system. "Before we formalize this agreement," Carter continued, "may I ask where the human specimens will be taken? Our people will need reassurance about their treatment." Zach Starr made a dismissive gesture. "They will be processed like all biological tribute. Some will serve the Draconians directly. Others will be distributed among Council research facilities." "Processed?" Carter asked, feigning confusion. The reptilian counselor's patience visibly thinned. "This is irrelevant. You have no choice in the matter." "Actually," Carter said, his voice suddenly firm, "we do." He pressed a hidden button on his sleeve. The data device activated with a soft beep. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every screen in the chamber flickered. The lights dimmed. Confusion spread across the faces of the Council members. "What is happening?" Zach Starr demanded. "Guards." The guards moved forward, but they seemed disoriented, touching their helmets as if experiencing pain. "Their neural links are down," Dr. Wright whispered to Phillips. "It's working." Carter stepped forward boldly. "Counselors, delegates of all species, listen carefully. The device we activated has temporarily disrupted your quantum communication network. Nothing in your fleet can communicate with anything else." Phillips drew his weapon as several guards advanced despite their confusion. "Stay back," he warned. "While we have your attention," Carter continued loudly, addressing all the delegates, "Lieutenant Martinez is broadcasting the truth about your council to every ship in your fleet." On the main screen, data began to appear. Records provided by Sub-Counselor Vex, images of specimen processing facilities. Proof that the tribute system primarily benefited only the 6 senior council species while exploiting the others. "This is treason," Zach Starr shouted. "Lies and deception." But many of the delegates from other species were watching the screens with growing horror. Some turned to confront the senior counselors with angry questions. "The truth," Carter said simply, is not treason. Alarms began to blare throughout the mothership. The chamber descended into chaos as the full impact of humanity's countermove began to unfold. Chaos consumed the Council mothership. Species turned against species as the truth of the tribute system spread. Commander Phillips grabbed Dr. Wright's arm and pulled her behind a pillar as energy weapons fired across the chamber. "We need to get back to the shuttle," he shouted over the noise. Secretary Carter ducked behind the pillar with them. "The guards are blocking the exit." Across the solar system, similar scenes played out on every Council vessel. Lieutenant Martinez's broadcast had reached them all. Ships from different factions began turning against each other. Some captains, horrified by the truth, openly rebelled against their senior commanders. On the mothership, Sub-Counselor Vex suddenly appeared beside the humans, 4 arms gesturing urgently. "This way. There's another exit. Why should we trust you?" Phillips demanded. "Because I started this," Vex replied, "and I wish to see it finished." They followed the insectoid alien through a hidden passage. Behind them, Senior Counselor Zaxthar's angry shouts faded as more guards rushed to protect him from his own allies. "What's happening throughout the fleet?" Dr. Wright asked as they ran. "Revolution," Vex said simply. "Many species have suspected the truth for generations but lacked proof. Your broadcast provided it." They reached a small hangar bay where 3 other aliens waited by a shuttle. These weren't Draconians or Vespari, but representatives of other species, ones that had been giving tribute for centuries. "These are my allies," Vex explained. "Leaders who have worked secretly for change." One alien stepped forward. It had pale blue skin and large, sad eyes. "I am Counselor Nix of the Lumari. For 8,000 years, my people have provided tribute, including our own as specimens. Today that ends." In Earth orbit, Admiral Bennett watched in amazement as Council ships began firing on each other. "Sir," reported a communications officer, "we're receiving messages from 17 different Council vessels. They're declaring independence from Council control and requesting peaceful contact with Earth." Lieutenant Mason's voice came over the comm system. "Admiral, our strike teams report success. We've secured access to 3 command vessels. Their crews are surrendering to us." "What about the Draconian and Vesperi ships?" Bennett asked. "Still fighting, sir, but they're outnumbered now. Many of their own ally species have turned against them." Back on the mothership, Phillips, Wright, and Carter reached their own shuttle. Vex stopped at the entrance. "We will not meet again soon," the alien said. "There is much work to be done to dismantle the old Council. But know this, what you started today will echo across the galaxy for millennia to come." "What will happen to Earth now?" Dr. Wright asked. "That depends on you," Vex replied. "The tribute system is broken. Something new must take its place." Their shuttle undocked as explosions rocked the mothership. Not enough to destroy the massive vessel, but signs of the internal conflict spreading throughout its decks. As they flew back toward Earth, they watched the battle unfold around them. Council ships either fought each other or retreated to distant positions. The unified threat had fractured into chaos. "It worked better than we could have hoped," Carter said quietly. Phillips nodded. Humanity stood its ground with one word: no. And the galaxy could not ignore it. 3 days later, Commander Phillips stood beside President Harrington as she addressed the United Nations. The mood was cautious but hopeful. "The Council as it existed has collapsed," she announced. "The Draconians and Vesperi have retreated beyond our solar system. 14 former Council species have requested diplomatic relations with Earth." She gestured to a group of aliens standing respectfully at the side of the stage. Representatives of the newly independent worlds. "They have proposed something unprecedented, a true galactic alliance, not built on tribute and dominance, but on mutual respect and cooperation." Admiral Bennett stepped forward with a report. "Their technology still far exceeds our own, but they have offered to share it openly. In return, they ask only for our help in building something new from the ashes of the old Council." President Harrington turned to the assembled world leaders. The question before us now is not whether we will submit, but whether we will lead. I believe we should accept their offer. Phillips looked at the alien representatives. In their eyes, he saw something he never expected to see from the stars: hope, and perhaps even admiration. 6 months after the fall of the Galactic Council, Earth hosted representatives from 14 former Council species. The newly constructed Unity Station orbited Earth, a symbol of the emerging alliance between worlds once divided by the tribute system. Commander Phillips, now promoted to captain, stood in the observation deck overlooking Earth. The blue planet shone against the blackness of space, peaceful and untouched by the conflict that had nearly consumed it. "Beautiful view," said Dr. Wright as she joined him. She wore a formal dress instead of her usual lab coat. Today was a day for celebration, not work. "Hard to believe it was only 6 months ago that we thought we might lose it all," Phillips replied. "One word changed everything," she said with a small smile. "No," the simplest answer, but one no species had given before. The observation deck filled with humans and aliens as the ceremony time approached. Lieutenant Martinez stood nearby, deep in conversation with a Lumari scientist. They had been working together to develop new translation systems to better bridge the gaps between species. Admiral Bennett entered with President Harrington. The room quieted as they made their way to the central platform, where representatives from all 14 former Council species waited. "Today marks a new chapter in galactic history," President Harrington began. 6 months ago, humanity faced a choice: submit to demands we found unacceptable, or stand our ground despite overwhelming odds. She gazed around the room, meeting the eyes of both humans and aliens. "We chose to stand, not just for ourselves, but for all species who had been forced into a system of tribute and exploitation." Councillor Nix of the Lumari stepped forward. "For 8,000 years, my people gave tribute to the Council. We surrendered our resources, our technology, and our own people as specimens. We believed we had no choice." The pale blue alien gestured toward the humans. "Then came a young species who did what we thought impossible. They simply said no. And in doing so, they freed not just themselves, but all of us." Captain Phillips watched as each representative signed the document that would create the new Galactic Alliance. Not a system of tribute, but a true federation of equals. "What happened to the Draconians and Vesperi?" he asked Admiral Bennett quietly. "Still out there," Bennett replied, "regrouping in a distant system with the few allies they have left. They're not defeated completely, but their power is broken. The truth was a more effective weapon than any warship." When all had signed except Earth, President Harrington stepped forward. The room fell silent. "Before Earth adds its signature, I want to be clear about our position," she said. "We enter this alliance not as conquerors or saviors, but as equals. The strength that allowed us to say no to tyranny must now help us say yes to cooperation, respect, and mutual growth." She signed the document. The room erupted in applause and cheers in a dozen different languages. Later, as the celebration continued, Captain Phillips found himself standing with Dr. Wright and Lieutenant Martinez near a window overlooking the docking bay. Ships from all 14 species were moored there, no longer separated by Council hierarchy. "What happens now?" Martinez asked. "We build something better," Dr. Wright replied. "The Council lasted 50,000 years through fear and exploitation. Let's see how long we can last through cooperation and respect." Phillips watched as a group of children, both human and alien, were given a tour of the station. They moved together easily, curiosity overcoming any differences in appearance or biology. "It won't be easy," he said. "There's still so much we don't understand about each other." "That's the point," Dr. Wright said with a smile. "We get to learn together now. No tribute, no specimens, just equals exploring the galaxy." Outside the window, Earth continued its silent rotation. The planet that had given the Council its first flat refusal. The world whose one-word answer had changed the course of galactic history. The world that had simply said,